Let me ask you something. If you came across a ship drifting in open water, sails torn, deck empty, not a soul in sight, what would you do? Would you climb aboard to look for survivors? Or would you get as far away as possible because something about it just feels wrong? Tonight, I'm going to tell you about 3 real ships that were found like that. Not myths, not sailor stories. These are documented cases, with crew members who vanished without explanation. One of them kept coming back, sailing the seas without a crew for nearly 40 years. Another was found in perfect condition, dinner still on the table. And alas, everyone on board was dead, eyes wide, mouths frozen mid-scream. These stories have haunted historians, rescuers, and families for decades. And by the end of this video, they might haunt you. So sit back and stay with me, because once you hear what happened on these ships, you'll never forget them. Let's start with the ship that refused to die. A ghostly wanderer of the Arctic seas, drifting for nearly 40 years, empty and abandoned, yet somehow still afloat. This is the chilling story of the Baychimo, built in 1914 with a steel hull tough enough to endure brutal northern waters. The Baychimo was a cargo vessel used by the Hudson's Bay Company. Her job was to carry supplies and trade furs along remote routes between Alaska and the western Canadian Arctic. But in October of 1931, something went terribly wrong. On her return from a trading mission, the Baychimo became trapped in early season sea ice off the coast of Barrow, Alaska. As the ice closed in, it locked the ship in place like a steel vise. The crew waited, hoping for a thaw, but the weather turned colder. Snow whipped across the deck. The temperature plunged. Her metal hull shrieked and flexed in the bitter cold. The sound was almost human, like a soul trapped inside, begging to be released. Fearing the Baychimo would be crushed or swallowed whole by the relentless ice, the crew faced a grim choice. They abandoned ship, trekking over the frozen tundra to seek shelter with a nearby Inuit village. They believed their vessel was doomed to be crushed beneath the frozen lake. But when they returned, just days later, the Baychimo had vanished. Not sunk, not shattered, simply gone. In the weeks that followed, Inuit hunters and Arctic travelers spotted her again, floating free from the ice, drifting silently along the coast. There was no one aboard, and this is where the mystery truly begins. If you stepped onto a ship like that, cold, creaking, no one in sight, would you explore it or turn back before something found you first? Over the decades, the Baychimo became known as the ghost ship of the Arctic. She would vanish into the ice, and then months or years later, reappear adrift hundreds of miles away. Attempts to salvage her always failed. Either the weather turned hostile, or she slipped away into a fog bank or behind an iceberg like she was hiding. Once, a boarding crew reported the ship's compass spinning wildly, refusing to settle, as if it were caught in some invisible magnetic storm. Do you think that was just Arctic interference, or something the ice doesn't want us to understand? The last confirmed sighting was in 1969, 38 years after she was first abandoned. She was still afloat, still alone, and then nothing. No wreck, no final resting place. Some say the Baychimo is still out there, drifting in the Arctic mists, trapped in a sheet of ice. Others believe she belonged to the sea, and the sea simply took her back. If you saw a ghost ship drifting toward you over and over again for decades, would you step aboard or let it rot with its secrets? Now let's talk about the ship that was found in near-perfect condition. No signs of struggle, no signs of violence, just empty. This is the mystery of the Mary Celeste, the most famous ghost ship in maritime history. The Mary Celeste was a 100-foot brigantine built in 1861. A tough, seasoned vessel that had weathered storms, changed owners, and survived a fire, earning a reputation as a survivor of the seas. But her final voyage would seal her place in legend. On November 7th, 1872, the Mary Celeste slipped away from New York Harbor, bound for Genoa, Italy. 10 souls were aboard. Captain Benjamin Briggs, his wife Sarah, their 2-year-old daughter Sophia, and 7 trusted crewmen. Their cargo was dangerous. 1,700 barrels of denatured alcohol, sealed tight but volatile enough to ignite at a single spark. The Atlantic crossing was supposed to be routine, but far from the safety of shore, something unseen waits. For weeks, the Mary Celeste sailed under calm skies and steady winds. And then, without warning, she vanished. No distress call, no sign of struggle, just an empty ship drifting into legend. For nearly a month, there was no word from the Mary Celeste. No distress signals, no wreckage, just silence. Then, on December 5th, the British ship Dei Grazia spotted a vessel drifting aimlessly about 400 miles east of the Azores. It was the Mary Celeste. Sails tattered, lifeboat missing, no crew in sight. The Dei Grazia crew approached cautiously. When they boarded, what they found was unsettling. There was no sign of violence, no blood, no panic. The ship was still seaworthy, waterlogged but intact. Personal belongings were untouched, the cargo mostly undisturbed. There was food still in the pantry, a meal partially prepared in the galley. The captain's log had entries right up to the day before she was found. It was as if the crew had vanished into thin air mid-sentence. What would cause an entire crew to abandon a perfectly functional ship? Why leave behind all their food and supplies? That question has haunted historians for more than 150 years. There was no storm, no evidence of piracy. The ship was still fully rigged. The only lifeboat was gone. But why take it if the ship itself was safer? Some believe the alcohol fumes from the cargo may have leaked, creating the fear of an imminent explosion. But if that were the case, why didn't they return once they realized the ship hadn't caught fire? Others think they may have mistaken distant land for safety and rowed away, only to vanish in the vast Atlantic. Then there are stranger theories. Some claim it was mutiny. Others point to sea monsters, alien abduction, or a curse that followed the ship from its very construction. But no theory truly fits, because there were no signs of struggle, no signs of insanity, just an eerie calm, frozen in time. The fate of the Mary Celeste crew remains one of the greatest maritime mysteries in history. It was eventually salvaged and sold off, but it never escaped the dark cloud that followed. She was wrecked off the coast of Haiti years later under suspicious circumstances. Some say insurance fraud, others say fate. Either way, the legend endured. The Mary Celeste has inspired books, films, and endless speculation. But at its core, it remains exactly what it was on that cold December day in 1872. A ghost ship. What's worse, a ship where everyone vanished, or a ship where everyone's still there, frozen in terror? With the mystery of the Mary Celeste still lingering, we turn now to another ghost ship, one that has captured imaginations for decades, the Ourang Medan. They called it a distress call from hell. In June of 1947, several merchant ships navigated the narrow Strait of Malacca, one of the busiest maritime passages in the world. The ship picked up a strange, fragmented SOS. The message was simple, but chilling. All officers, including captain, are dead, lying in chartroom and bridge. Possibly whole crew dead. There was silence for several moments. Then one final message crackled through the static. The voice came through saying,
"I die."
And then, nothing. The transmission cut off. Radio operators on multiple ships were left stunned. Coordinates had been embedded in the signal, so one nearby vessel called the Silver Star, an American merchant ship, immediately changed course to investigate. Just hours later, they spotted her, the SS Ourang Medan, drifting aimlessly in the tropical heat. No smoke, no fire, no signs of battle. Her hull was intact. Her flags hung limp in the still air. But there was no movement, no response. Boarding the ghost ship, the crew of the Silver Star stepped into a waking nightmare. Bodies were strewn across the deck and throughout the ship. Men were sprawled with arms outstretched, as if clawing at something that wasn't there. Eyes wide open, mouths frozen open as if they were silently screaming. Every corpse bore the same expression, pure, unfiltered terror. Some were found, lying flat on their backs. Others curled in corners or clutching steel railings so tightly their knuckles had gone white, even in death. Even the ship's dog, its lips drawn back in a snarl, was dead. And yet, not a single wound. No blood, no signs of a struggle. It was as if death had swept through the ship in an instant, killing everyone where they stood. The temperature on board felt unnaturally cold, despite the sweltering tropical air outside. One rescue team member later described the feeling as walking into a place that didn't want you there. Below deck, things were even more bizarre. The radio room showed signs that something had tried to keep transmitting. The last operator's body was found slumped beside the equipment, hands still resting on the key. No clear cause of death. No explanation. Just a ship filled with frozen fear. The crew of the Silver Star decided to tow the Ourang Medan back. But before they could get far, smoke began pouring from the cargo hold. They cut the line and fled just in time. Moments later, the Ourang Medan exploded. A massive blast ripped through the ship, sending debris into the air and splitting the hull apart. Within minutes, the ghost ship sank beneath the waves, taking all answers with it. So what really happened? Some say the ship was secretly transporting lethal chemicals left over from World War II, like potassium cyanide or nerve gas, and a leak caused the crew to suffocate or hallucinate before dying. Others believe something darker was at play, that the ship was smuggling cursed relics or ritual artifacts stolen from ancient sites in Southeast Asia, objects that should never have been moved. And that what followed wasn't natural. But questions remain. How did the SOS get sent if everyone was already dead? And who, or what, sent the final message? The Ourang Medan has no official records, no cargo manifest, no confirmed origin. Some even argue she never existed at all, that the ship was wiped from history. But those who heard that final call, they never forgot it. Whatever happened out there, it was enough to silence an entire crew, enough to freeze their fear into their flesh, and enough to make the sea bury the evidence. What do you think happened aboard the Ourang Medan? 3 ships found adrift. One sailed the seas alone for decades. One was discovered abandoned, dinner still on the table. And one held a crew frozen in terror, lost to the silence. What really happened aboard these ships? Maybe some secrets are meant to stay beneath the waves. This is Oddbit, where we uncover the unexpected. Got a theory? Or your own strange story? Drop it in the comments below. And if you want more mysteries that haunt the deep, subscribe, because the ocean still holds many secrets.